art fraud is nothing new. It's been going on since art was created. If certain types of art reach a certain value, people are sure to copy it. And we've seen it throughout the European markets. We've seen it through the American markets. Art gets copied. That's the thing that you all know to be true. We've heard the stories about copies of Monets and copies of Degas and copies of Picassos and copies of all kinds of things, American furniture, you name it. If it gets value, it's copied. And no market in the world has a bigger problem with fraud and fakes than the Chinese art market. The Chinese art market is hands down the greatest art forgery market in the world by far, and it involves hundreds of millions of dollars every year and is perpetrated by dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of auction houses around the world on a regular basis. There are some good auction houses. There are some great auction houses. You have Sotheby's, you have Christie's, you have Bonhams. In New York, you've got Doyle's, you've got Freeman's. In over in the UK, you've got a number of good ones. But among them, there is a flood of terrible auction houses that sell nothing but fakes and copies, and they seem to have a never-ending source of supply because it's all coming out of China, out of Qingdacheng in China, out of different areas where they carve jades, where they make silks and so forth. Everything, every art form from China, if it has any value, is being reproduced and copied and sold fraudulently in the foreign markets. There is no area that is immune to this. None, not one. And I'm going to go through and show you just how big it is, how big of a problem it is. Right now, I'd say 98% of the things offered in the Chinese art market are copies, other than certain types of Chinese export wares, and they are now becoming problematic. Chinese export are porcelains that were made and objects produced in China, not just porcelain, but lacquerwares and carvings and so forth that were produced during the 18th and 19th century for the European markets, sort of made to order, were known as made to order things. But the bulk of the market, of the fake market, is really comprised of pieces that were never meant for export. These were pieces that were made for domestic use in China, many of them for the imperial families. And it is such a huge industry, you're going to be shocked. All right. And on this page are a number of things that are coming up on an auction site, Live Auctioneers. And the auction sites that host these sales, like Live Auctioneers and Valuable, Sale Room, there are many of them. They are just providing the platform. They do not endorse the stuff being sold. I want to clarify that before anybody gets too upset with these platforms. They're there just to provide the platform. That's all it is. It's like Facebook. People pay for the space. They put the stuff up. They auction it. Price results, and that's it. But the live auctioneers, these platforms have nothing to do with it. These are corrupt auction houses, and everything you're looking at on this page is a reproduction. Every piece. And this was a very quick thing to put together just by typing in a couple of search words. In this case, I put in Zhuangde, which it was an era during the Ming Dynasty. That's all that really matters here. And every piece on this page is a reproduction, and some of them are very convincing looking because the people that produce them are master craftsmen. These are people that know what the pieces should look like. They've seen them. They've studied them. Many of them are generationally run family businesses in Qingdacheng and other places in China where they've been doing it for a century or two. They know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing better than many dealers. They really do. And they get the stuff through, they get the stuff out, they sell it. People from the West go over there and they place orders for these things, and they buy them for a couple of $100s a pop, bring them over to the United States, and turn them into $10,000, $20,000, $100,000. They're all copies. And I'm just going to run through some of them right now. And if you're looking at this page right here and you're thinking, well, I think I could tell the difference. Okay, these are all copies. And these are all authentic. This is Sotheby's website, the famous auction house in New York. All right, these are all authentic Zhuangde and Yongle period porcelains. And if you look at the prices, 14 million Hong Kong dollars is dish sold for, which is just a little under 2 million US, about 1.6 million dollars. Here you have a bowl that's sold, as an example. Okay, and this was from the Zhuangde period. It was a beautiful piece. It sold a number of years ago. Sold for 7 million Hong Kong, which is about $1 million for that. Okay, and it goes on and on and on. So the bottom line is that these are authentic. So if you're interested in buying them and you think you're going to find a bargain on Invaluable or Live Auctioneers or Sale Room or any of these other platforms, I can just tell you you're not. What you're going to end up with is a very skillfully made copy, because people that have authentic pieces don't send them to podunk auction houses scattered around the United States. They don't. If they're collecting at this level, they know where to sell it. They know to go to the major auction houses. They know to go to reputable auction houses. And among of the reputable auction houses in the United States that are capable of selling pieces like this effectively, there are about 4 or 5, 6. That's about it. And that includes the big three, as we call them: Sotheby's, Christie's, and Bonhams. And then you have a Freeman organization. You have Doyle's New York, and that's about it. That's about it. There aren't too many others that have any clout at all in the market. All right, and the same goes for the UK and France. There's a couple over there, and that's it. And I want to just sort of run through and give you some idea how to spot some of these things. All right, and this is a classic case. This is a company called Admirable Collections, rather, out in El Monte, California. El Monte is loaded with auction houses that sell fakes. All right. And now some auction houses in California are pretty good, but this isn't one of them. All right. And if you take a look at their menu of upcoming sales, something should strike you right away. You see sale after sale after sale of hundreds and hundreds of things that would all be worth a fortune if they were authentic. There is no auction house in the world that gets this much supply anywhere, including Sotheby's and Christie's. All right, they don't. They run several series of sales a year of Asian art, and that's it. This is more than Sotheby's does in a whole year in New York City. More material, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lots. All of them are reproductions. Every last one of them. All right, and you can just click on any one of them, pull it up, and what do you have? You've got copies of Shinlong porcelains, estimated $4,500 to $18,000. If that was an authentic example, it would probably sell for somewhere in mid 6 figures. All right, it's got some horrific issues with the way this one is done. It should be instantly recognizable as a fake to anybody that's been collecting for any length of time. But for somebody new at it, they're going to go, well, it's kind of pretty. The colors are nice. The shape is good. It looks, it's all handmade. All of this is hand decorated, but the workmanship is so poor. I doubt this will. Well, this might sell for a couple $100. Right now, it's got nobody even watching it. But this is the kind of stuff that you run into all the time. And hopping along over to this, here's a jar that they claim is from Sotheby's. It wasn't from Sotheby's. Auction houses can say things like from Sotheby's, a porcelain Ming Junde blue and white jar. And they can say that pretty much with impunity because Sotheby's isn't likely to take action on them. All right. If Sotheby's wants to get tied up in a lot of litigation, a lot of headaches, they could write them and say, take our name off of this. We never sold this and so on. All right. Now, this is a reproduction. This jar is brand new, and it's not a big jar. It measures about 6 inches tall, 6 inches tall, and it's still sold for $100,000. It's a total fake. It's a total fake. All right, and if it were authentic, yeah, it probably would have brought $150,000, $200,000. They gave it an enormous estimate. Well, it's supposedly market period, so say 600,000 to 800,000. There it is. All right, what's wrong with the bottom of this jar is fairly extensive, including the way the paste looks and the way the decoration is done and so forth. But some people think they understand it well enough, and suddenly you've got a horse race. A couple of people are bidding on it, and off you go. This was estimated at $500,000 to $800,000, sold for $100,000. Somebody you could have bought this and bought it in Hong Kong on Hollywood Road probably for $50 or $60. All right, here's another one. This is another Juan de market period. I'm just doing Juan de as an example. Jar that is supposedly market period. Market period means it has a rain mark on the bottom of the emperor's, meaning it was made for an emperor, a particular emperor. It has his mark on it. Basically, it's known as the yin ho, and this is a very rare type. One like it sold at Sotheby's for about $1 million and a half a while ago. This one sold for $9,500. So somebody probably thought they got a great buy. It was only estimated at $8,500 to $10,000. Now, if anybody had this jar, they would know perfectly well what it's worth, and they wouldn't be selling it in California at some podunk auction house. All right, they would go here and go to Sotheby's, and I think this is the one, right? Same one? Yeah, it sold for 11 million Hong Kong dollars, or about that comes out to roughly 1.3, 1.4 million. All right, this is this one. and this is this one. Notice there are differences. The color of the cobalt is different and so forth. This has so many things wrong with it. It would be a long list if I sat here and told you. But to the average newbie collector, a person that's been doing it for less than 10 years, would look at this and say, that looks pretty convincing. Boy, it's a bargain. There are no bargains on the internet. There's no Santa Claus. All right. This is a fake. It's a very good fake, but it's a fake nonetheless. All right. And then you come over to this. Now, this is a sale that took place at Dot Dot Gallery, this outfit out in California. They've been accused of all kinds of things over the years. All right, they're still in business and they're still selling things. And here are some things that sold: paintings, copies of paintings by Zhu Beihong for just $1,800. Were really by him, it would have brought 80,000. All right, you've got inkstones, you've got lobed boxes like the Wan Li period. The last one of these that came up in the market that still had its original lid sold for about probably 50 or 60,000. This one sold for 2,200. So no, it's not what they're not getting the prices of authentic things, but they're getting prices that people think are a bargain. Oh, I got a bargain. I'm going to steal this. No. People that know this stuff search the internet and they find things on occasion that they can spot that you can't spot. But in general, these types of things don't turn up here that are authentic unless it's coming from a major auction house. In the page, you'll look at these and you can go over to the major auction houses and the reputable auction houses around the world, and you will find pieces that look very, very much like them that are authentic. All right, and the chances of going over to a website like this or any of these online platforms and just finding a bargain randomly is zero. I'll just say it, it's zero. You're as likely to find this as you are to find a Leonardo da Vinci floating around on the internet. All right, that's how rare these things are. And that's why they bring $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. I've gotten phone calls from people and they'll say, I bought it on Live Auctioneers. I think it's an authentic piece. I think it's worth $800,000. And I have to tell them it's worth about 400. All right. And this is what happens. You have copies of jades. Jades are heavily copied. One of the most notorious areas of copying is in the jade world because jade is very hard to date. And they all know that. All right. Bronze is another area. There are companies in the Far East, in Tibet, Nepal, that reproduce amazing bronzes that are very, very convincing at a glance and extremely convincing to a new collector. And we see them offered throughout the United States. We see them offered throughout Europe, Austria. There's one auction house there that seems to have an endless supply of great bronzes. And they're mostly reproductions. That's all there is to it. Same thing with stone carving. Stone carving, there's a company out in Asia that I saw their website, and they're very proud of the fact that they make incredible reproductions. And they do. I've seen the stuff. It is very convincing looking material, but they're not. And but they sell them for a couple of $1,000s. They get shipped to Europe and somebody will slip them into an auction and they'll get 20, 30, 40,000 for it. All right. And the owner of the company, I know somebody that was dealing with him, and he said he's very proud of the fact that his pieces get sold as authentic. And he doesn't sell them as authentic. He sells them for what they are, museum quality, true museum quality reproductions. And they are very difficult to differentiate from the originals. All right. And then you have this company, Aurora, up in Canada. The Canadians have their own problems up there with fakes. Everything on this page is a reproduction. And you'll see that the pieces don't sell for fortunes, but they sell for $2,000, $500. A lot of pieces in this sale sold for, there's one, $2,000 and so forth. This is what they do. This is how they get them off. All right, 1,000, another 1,000, and these are all pieces that can be bought in China for $100 to $200. So the profit margin is huge for some of these items, huge. All right, here's a piece of a Meiping vase, supposedly from the Yuan, or actually it's from the Yuan, not the Ming Dynasty, the style. But at any rate, well, it's Ming because the lappets are divided, so it's early Ming style. It's estimated at 1,000 to 3,000, sold for 4,800. This piece is brand new. It has absolutely no age whatsoever to it. It's very well done. Beautiful workmanship, and if you saw the original next to it, you'd have to study it very carefully to tell the difference. But this is a reproduction. It is a great reproduction. There's the bottom of it. That looks old, right? Well, they're very good at making porcelain look old. They're very good at staining. They're very good at putting scratches and things. They're very good at putting wear on pieces. They can scratch porcelain in the right places to make it look like it's been used a lot. There's all kinds of tricks, and they are extremely good at it. They are better than the Chinese are better at forging surfaces on things than any culture in the world, because they've been doing it for so long. They've been doing it for hundreds of years. They were producing incredible early Shang type bronzes in the 1920s that passed muster with museums all over the world. All right, and here you have the bottom of this. That looks pretty convincing. There's a number of areas what's wrong with it. One of it is the color of the porcelain too, is this umber color that you don't see on porcelain. There's no wear to the foot rim from standing on a surface. The way it's trimmed is not quite right, and so forth. But the vase itself is so highly desirable in its type and style that somebody would go wild and chase it if they didn't know any better, because this vase, were it authentic, would bring in the millions. Simple as that. So somebody thinks, oh, I got a bargain. I got this. I only paid $4,800 for it. It's worth $2 million. And I've been to these houses. Here's a piece, one that sold apparently for $750,000 with a $1 to $1.5 million estimate. And it's again a nonsensical form itself. They didn't make these, and it's very convincing. But it's very convincing on the look. The look is pretty good. And this was sold by Ben Bid in Flushing, New York. I'm not sure if they're still in business or not, to be perfectly honest. This was sold in 2016. They probably got in trouble and, closed up and went on their own way. I don't know what happened to them, but I used to see their stuff all the time. Again, a total fake. All right. And then you get into all of these. You have all these fake jades that turned up over the years. This is Eastern Art Auction Company. And they were located in, I'm not sure if they're around anymore. Some of them, they come and go. What happens is they get in trouble. They get a lot of complaints. They upset somebody enough. They hide behind lawyers. This is in Murrieta, California. All right. This company, are they still in business? Yeah, they're still in business. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is the one. They're still around. These are all reproductions, all of these. Every jade, every bronze, everything, all the seals, the porcelains are all copies. All of these pieces are copies, every last one of them. All right, and they're still there today. All right, and then you had pieces like this, Ming Dynasty blue and white dragon jar and so forth, sold for $40,000 a couple of years ago. This just sold in October of last year. This was sold at Aurora up in Canada. It's a reproduction. It's not old, but somebody paid $40,000 on it for a $1,000 to $3,000 estimate. All right, you have this. This sold was it Lauren or Eden Galleries down in Marietta, Georgia. Okay, now they're down in southern Georgia. There's a cluster of auction houses. They're all within a few miles of each other, within 10 miles of each other, I think. There's Eden Gallery, Lauren Gallery, Roswell Gallery. There's some other. They're all they sell is reproductions, as far as I can tell, and they often include the names of what they claim are prominent collectors, and they'll have photographs of people, and they'll put the photograph next to the object in the listing to make it look convincing, and then they'll do a write-up on the bottom and say, oh, he served in the Navy, he did this, he did that, and so forth. And then when you go to look up for the guy, you can't find him. He was never listed anywhere as a significant collector, because anybody that owned huge quantities of this much stuff would be very well known in the collecting world. And if they had that much stuff, they sure as heck aren't going to sell it in Marietta, Georgia. They're going to send it right to New York or London or Hong Kong and offer it to a major auction house, which they would gladly fly down in 24 hours and pick it all up for you. All right, that's because they want the authentic stuff. But these are reproductions. This one was supposedly also from the early Ming period, the Zhuande, estimated at just $1,000 to $1,500, sold for $3,500 plus the auction house's commission, which is another third. So you're up around $4,500, and it's a fake. This piece is brand new, meaning it was made sometime probably after the 1990s, early 2000s or later, probably made 6 or 8 months before the auction took place, to be honest. And this is the kind of work they can do there. The Chinese cloisonee artists that are making things today are superbly talented. They make incredible stuff, especially examples from the late Ming and early Qing dynasties, and particularly the Qianlong period. It's a huge area of problem, very problematic stuff, but they also did Ming stuff. They'll do copies of Ming pieces. All right, and this was just another case in point. And then over to this sold for $198,000 a few years back, and it was sold by Diane, yeah, Antique and Arts Investment Company in San Francisco. It was a fake. All right. This one, these carp jars, supposedly from the late Ming period. These are extremely rare. When they do turn up on the market, one came up not long ago. One of the big auctions, I don't remember which auction house had it. It sold for a couple of $1,000,000. That's what they sell for, the big ones. The big ones sell for a lot of money. All right. There is actually a fellow on YouTube that has apparently a room full of these things, and he's always talking about how rare they are. But he's got them in every size imaginable, because you can buy them as reproductions in every size imaginable. Now, this particular one had sold earlier in the same year. This was 2018. This one sold. It had sold in April of 2018 for about $139,000, and apparently didn't get paid for it. Probably the buyer came and looked at it and said that's a fake, and it was reoffered. And this time around, it sold for $40,000. And as far as I know, it was paid for and has not reappeared on the market. It was only estimated at $2,400 to $3,400, even though it should have brought in the millions were it authentic. All right, but somebody thought for $40,000 they got to steal. Greed is a dangerous thing. If you're into the art world, greed is a dangerous thing. Don't believe in Santa Claus; he doesn't exist. All right, then you have this, a very, very rare Ming Chenhua Dalcai enamel dragon jar. These are incredibly rare. They do turn up periodically, and they sell for in legitimate auction houses. They bring high 6 to 7 figures, well into 7 figures at times. This is a very rare type. Sold for $75,000. They gave it a $1,200 to $1,800 estimate. Somebody bought it. Somebody went after it. This was at Eden, down in Marietta, Georgia again. All right. This is another type of vase that is often reproduced. You see these all the time. Sometimes they're in pairs. It's a Qianlong type of vase made during the Qianlong period. They generally sell for $800,000 to $1 million, which is what the estimate was on this. But this one isn't a real one. So they gave it an enormous estimate. It sold for $200,000 to some poor sap. All right. And somebody's got it in their house. And this was at a company called the Picking Moon Gallery in New Jersey. All right. New Jersey, New York. I've never heard of New Jersey, New York. I think they meant to say New Jersey. At any rate, or maybe they're in New York and New Jersey. But there were a whole bunch of them down there. There was a company called Empire Auctions that sold a lot of fakes. They were in New York for a long time. Then they were in Boston for a while, and now I think they're gone. I'm not sure. But eventually they burn so many bridges they can't sell anymore, but they get away with it, and they make a lot of money, and then they just take off with the money when everything falls down around them. And a number of them I've discovered over the years are actually lawyers that own some of these companies. I believe Dot Dot is owned by an attorney in partnership with another attorney in another part of California who also owns another auction house. And I believe it appears that many of these auction houses that are Chinese owned, because a lot of them are, they have your American front people pretending to be the owners, but they're really run by Chinese nationals that they're importing the fakes. And sadly, they're selling many of the fakes back to people in mainland China, because the people in mainland China gullibly believe that in America, you can't sell fakes on the market because it's America. Well, I got news for them. They absolutely can, and they absolutely do. And they advertise not only on Live Auctioneers and Valuable, but often these auctions will appear on numerous auction websites in China. And Chinese folks will buy them, get them sent there, and then they find out that they're fakes later, and they're too embarrassed and too ashamed to say anything, so they just get rid of it, put it away, and pretend it didn't happen because they're embarrassed. Embarrassment plays a big part in why you don't hear more about these cases happening, and you don't hear about criminal cases. Now you have this one, a Famille Rose ground ruby, what's called a ruby enamel vase, Qianlong mark on it apparently, sold for $35,000 with a $15,000 to $20,000 estimate. It's a reproduction. All right, it would have sold for into 6 figures were it authentic. And here are some of those bronzes I was just talking about. But look at the prices. The Shakyamuni bronze Buddha, $5,000. It's a fake. You've got this one here, $2,500. It's a fake. Another one sold for $5,000, $1,800, and so on. And just go down the page. And when you begin to look at these and begin adding up in your head, this is just one page, and you got a couple of $100,000 worth of fakes on here. All right. What does that tell you? And they go on all the time, every day, on these websites all over the world. I'm not picking on live auctioneers at all. I'm just saying they're just paying they're just renting out service space. So it's up to the auction house if they want to be crooked or not. Here's one of these paintings where they claim it belonged to this famous Zhu Bihong rooster painting, and it sold for $30,000. And they claim these were the former owners. And I can tell you that it's probably very unlikely that those two guys ever went near this painting, but it gives credibility, especially in Asia, to the buyers. It gives them confidence. Acquired from a prominent collector representing an important private collections. And important private collections. That doesn't make sense. This is Lauren Galleries. This was sold just a week ago, a couple of days ago, $30,000. All right. Paintings are so easy to reproduce in China by great artists. They are the third rail, especially early 20th and mid 20th century Chinese painters. There's a town in China where you can have anything copied that you want, and it will pass muster with most of the auction houses. All right. And this is, sort of a classic case of it. All right. And then you have things like this. I mentioned at the beginning, Chinese export porcelain that was made in China during the 18th and 19th century for the West. And for a long time, they didn't make a lot of reproductions of these. And in the last year or two, we're starting to see reproductions now of Chinese export porcelains. They always made a few, but they were never hard to spot, so to speak. And the Motoheda company famously made them, of course, but they always marked them Motoheda. The Motohedas, Rafi Motoheda was a collector, he and his wife. They were collectors of Chinese export porcelain, and they started a factory in Spain to reproduce very fine examples. But they sold them as reproductions. It was clear that they were. There was no deception involved. They made pieces for museums to sell in their gift shops. Very fine quality stuff, and people are actually starting to collect that nowadays. But this is a punch bowl, and this is on Live Auctioneers right now. The sale's in a couple of days. It's got 45 people watching it. It's a fake. All right, and this shows you how much the market has changed for these. Years ago, when Chinese export wares over the last 20 years haven't been that popular in the market among collectors, so the Chinese forgers have been focusing heavily on imperial wares, copying imperial wares of the Ming and Qing dynasty, Sung wares, Ru wares, all these largely widely mass reproduced items. Well, everybody's caught on to that, so now they're moving into export wares, which suddenly seem to be getting some traction among collectors. Chinese people are starting to buy these, and these export pieces, the pieces that were made for export, they are now reproducing. And this is a copy of one. This is it's a very good copy, but it's a fake. And it's in an auction. Clark Galleries has this. I don't think they know it's a fake, because they probably aren't even considering that it could be a fake, because it's been so long, for such a long time, they haven't been forging these pieces like this. But this is, in my opinion, a reproduction. All right, the colors, some of the color palette on here doesn't look right to me. The drawing looks odd. The gilding is very muddy and cloudy up in here. It wasn't done with any precision. They were meticulous about their gilding and so forth. And when you look at the interior, hold on a second, you have this with this rather pukey looking greenish yellow color here at the bottom. That's not a color that they even had back then in the 18th century. And the way these rose enamels have beaded up and tightened like this, it's not what it should look like. This is a fake. All right, but look at it. It's up to $1,200. It's got 45 people watching it, and the sale is in for another 5 days. So what's going to happen? This is probably going to bring $2,000 or $3,000. I bookmarked it because I want to see what the heck it brings. It's a 16-inch bowl. Were it authentic? Yeah, it would bring 20,000. But it won't bring that, but it'll probably do pretty well. And somebody's going to be really, really disappointed. All right, and it goes on and on. Here's a company that used to be here in Massachusetts. They had their last sale in February of 2024. Breton Art USA Limited. They sell fakes. That's what they sold. They sold other stuff as well, but they sold a lot of very unconvincing looking Chinese porcelain to unexpected buyers. So that's the problem. It is a huge business. It is. I don't know how much it is in a year. I've never tried to add it all up because there's so many sources of data on what these things sell for, and so many different websites. But I suspect it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and has been now for about 15 or 20 years. It's a big business. And if you're going to get into collecting, I can only tell you, until you really, really learn and spend some time with some good dealers that share information, because dealers do share information with their collectors if they want to help them build collections, because some of the best collections in the world were all bought from dealers. It's pretty rare to find a great collection that was built solely from auction houses. Most of the great collections of the world were built through a dealer network. Because they know what they're doing. They see more stuff in a month than the average collector is going to see in 5 years. They're always looking. They're always out there doing things, and they find great stuff. Now you pay a little bit of a premium, but it's worth it because you're not going to get a fake. But if you're looking to get into collecting Chinese art and you want to insulate yourself, do not go bargain shopping. Bargain hunting for Chinese art is the most dangerous practice you can undertake until you really know what you're doing. And that takes about 20 years, I would say, of steady work on it. All right. You cannot learn it overnight. You cannot learn it in a few months. You can't learn it from 5 or 10 or even 40 books. You need to see a lot of stuff, handle a lot of stuff, go to a lot of museums, work with dealers, listen to what they have to say, talk to the heads of departments of the good auction houses, the ones that are reliable. Like I said, there are about 5 of them in the country. And that's it. All right. That's the way you build a collection. And if you try to build a collection on your own without all these resources, you are going to end up with a very, very bad collection. I know, I've seen them. I've had people send me pictures of their collections, and it's awful to have to write them back and say, nothing in your collection is old. And they've got 100 things. They've got 50 things. And you have to tell them everything you bought is a repro. And some of them have spent a lot of money. A lot of money. I heard from one guy, he had spent about $400,000 bargain hunting for fakes. All right. It was very sad. It was a very sad conversation. I had to tell him. And he admitted it later that he bought it all off the internet. All right. That's not how you build a great collection. You build it, go to dealers, go to the reputable auction houses, not a auction house that says they're reputable. Doesn't mean a thing. All right. So keep that in mind. I hope you found this helpful. Be careful. Don't get taken. And but do collect. But do it wisely, the way you would any other type of thing. Do it with research. Do it with good, steady supplies of information from people that you know you can trust. Study it. Go to museums and learn that way. Do not dive into the internet and start spending money, or you will end up with rubbish, pretty much. All right. Have a good week. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Join us over on Patreon, and we'll be back later in the week with another video. Okay, bye-bye.